Hello, and welcome to Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem.
This is the podcast for you if you like to hear about bizarre mysteries, murders, monsters, things that go bump in the night, things that are unknowable and unknown. Or if you just like a good cat parade.
Right, then you guys just missed that right before I hit record, so that's good. A cat parade followed by a cat massacre.
Yes.
Yeah.
Disclaimer. This is not suitable for work because we have somewhat colorful language at times, and we also cover some pretty delicate topics. Sometimes it's graphic. Murder.
Murder.
Who knew?
Yes, today's mine is.
Yes,
Yours
mine
is
is
not. So that's good. But yeah, so use your discretion when deciding who to listen to this round. But if you're in a car, by all means, blast it so everybody can hear it. That's cool.
And who are you?
I am on different days. This week, I'm Shannon Lawrence. Writer, mom, student. You can find my website at thewarriormuse.com. I'm currently tracking my freaking cats so that they don't gang up on another one that I've locked in my bedroom. So anyway, that's me in a nutshell.
I would never put you in a nutshell.
It would be hard work.
It would, and I'm not going to work that hard.
I take a lot of nutshells.
My name is MB Partlow. I'm a writer. I'm a retail drone. I love my job. I really do. It is a lot of fun, but I don't want to say what it is. I'll just say I'm in retail.
You don't want to advertise it?
And I don't know. I work for Full Figure Resale. It's a plus size consignment store. Women's sizes 16 and up. I do Facebook Lives. I'm going to have to teach people how to do Facebook Lives. My boss asked me if I could do that. I said, sure. And I sent him an outline. And I think he was expecting, 4 or 5 lines. And this is a 2-page bulleted. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. If I am teaching people, I have to be prepared. I have to practice. I have to. It's just like, well, that's a scary side of you. Yes, that is the super organized MB.
Now you know.
Sorry you've unleashed that Kraken.
Great. You're the store Kraken.
I'm the store something.
So many things.
I'm so many things. It was funny. One day a woman came in, and I can't remember what she bought. But I think it was a purse. And she was just really, really excited about it. And the boss said something like, whew, you're going to need to sit down after buying that purse. And I said, are you kidding? You need to have a cigarette after buying that purse. And he just looks at me. The boss just looks at me. But the woman laughed. The woman thought it was hilarious. So it's all good. I am a good judge I said, I wouldn't say that to the church lady who came in after her. I do have some sense. I don't display it often.
I try to keep that hidden deep down inside me.
I do. And as we were just talking about mental health, I have a little more sense these days that I have actual mental health.
Oh. So. Or lack thereof.
Yeah.
Right.
What did I say? We have a tablespoon full of mental health
between us. And you're welcome for that tablespoon. So much mental health right now. Yeah, we were talking about a lot of people things seem to be reaching ahead this week.
Yes.
Second to last week of February? I think people have reached the bottom of that arc there for how they deal with this set of lock-ins for the pandemic.
Yes.
So, and we're right there with everybody. Having panic attacks and all that good stuff.
Anxiety is a wonderful thing.
You think I read an article that everybody, of course, because writers were passing around, and it was about why writers can't write right now. So, and it has to do with the pandemic. They're like, it's weird because all writers have ever wanted is to be able to be, if I could just go hide in a cave and write. Yep. And now we're stuck in a cave. But there's a big difference between being caged.
Yes, between being there because you want to be there and being there because you have to be there.
Yeah, there's a big difference. And writers depend a lot on stuff they observe and interactions and stuff to write realistic, say, dialogue and character interactions and characters.
Yes. So when you see my line of cozy mysteries centered around a resale shop, a consignment shop, you'll know why.
I mean, you need to do it.
I talked about it, and I was like, huh. And so my coworkers at first were like, oh my God, she's going to kill us. And I was like, no, I'm going to kill all those annoying customers. They kind of got on board after that.
I have an amateur sleuth one that I'm working on.
Ooh.
Yeah. So we'll see.
If only we could have a writing retreat.
Oh my God, that would be amazing right now.
Oh.
I will say, I didn't know. It wasn't because of the pandemic. I didn't know that the Cymbalta I was on had killed the creativity. People kept talking about it in the support group I'm in, and I was like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And they weren't even writers. And then as I've been tapering off, I'm down to below 10 milligrams now. Or wait, sorry, 15 milligrams.
Well, okay.
But anyway, all of a sudden, it's like a rush. It just, and I was like, oh my God, I didn't notice it was gone. I think if I hadn't been doing the school hardcore, I would have noticed it. But it's just story ideas and the urge to write and the restlessness just suddenly came on. And I was like, holy shit, it really had killed it. And wow. I didn't know. Like I didn't notice. And then also I started getting, I don't know, like snarky comments faster again and just stuff that was such a part of me.
Your brain turns back on.
Yes, but I didn't necessarily know it was gone. So it's really weird. It's crazy. It's this rush, and I have a long ways to go, but I'm like, it makes you feel like maybe you will start to be a normal person again once you get this awful drug out of your system. So
or as close to normal as you want to be.
Well, yeah, I would like to be my normal.
Yes.
Nobody else is normal.
Exactly.
Not everybody else is normal, but
exactly.
Yeah. That was exciting. Speaking of mental health, I was like, oh my God, I'm starting to be me again. And it comes, waves and windows, they call it, but it was a window. And for a few days, I had a window of energy, and then that died. That went away. So that was a great window for a little while. But again, it made me see, okay, it'll come back. It'll come. I'll function again someday. There's a grumpy kitty walking in here.
Hello, kitty.
The sun's in here. All right. Hey, I went to a new restaurant.
Where?
Right? I went to Chef Bob's Lobster Trap.
And you said they have stuff besides lobster.
They do. They bring in fresh fish. Like it's
now.
flown in. You go in, they have a whiteboard, and it's what they've flown in and where it's been flown in from. It's all, I think, East Coast. But, you know, there's a wide array of sea life on the East Coast.
True.
So, but yeah, I got it's a Connecticut lobster roll. And so that's, instead of like the creamy, like mayo involved one, which would be, was it the Boston one or something? Anyway, it's butter and lemon and just, you get that piece of toast and then there's all this lobster heaped in there. And I didn't even, it's called gronking it if you want to add extra meat. And I thought about it because I was hungry, but I'm glad I didn't do it. And they had house-made chips. But my husband got something called lobster pie.
I saw the picture of that.
Yeah, so it's lobster meat, and then there's what they call it? It was like a sherry cream sauce in it, and then like buttery Ritz cracker topping. Okay, so yeah, that's what he had.
I
it was
had that
good. I tasted
in New
it.
Hampshire.
Okay,
and it was like you just wanted to stick your entire face in the bowl.
And I got a whoopie pie from them that was bigger than the palm of my hand. In fact, I took a picture and my fingertips are just barely up around it. That's how big it is. And I have long fingers. So it was pretty impressive.
That's awesome. Did I tell you about our dessert charcuterie board?
No.
Oh,
where'd you get it?
I made it. Well, no. Let me explain.
Explain yourself.
So, thing one was home for her birthday. And it was kind of last minute. She'd had other plans and they fell through. So we're like, and it's a hard time of year. So we said, yes. By all means, what are you going to do? Tell your child, no, don't come home. Yes, come home. And thing two came with her. So that Saturday night, she wanted Indian food. So we ordered from Mirch Masala. It's very, very good. Well, I had said to her, what do you want for dessert? And I was like, I'm going to make you a pecan pie. And she goes, I don't really want a pecan pie. Oh, surprise.
Don't do it.
Glad I asked. And I said, what would you like? And then I said, I know what we'll do. We'll go to Boonzagers.
Oh, yeah. Boonzagers.
They are so good. So we go and we get in line because it's Saturday and it's like 3:30, 4 o'clock and there's a line. So, and the people behind the counter are like, what do you want? What do you want? What do you? And they're trying to get people through and the people walk up, look in the display case.
There's such an array.
So I'm like, well, there's this cake and there's that cake and there's a tort and there's a that. And she was just like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed with choices. So I said, I know what we'll do. So we went down to the next case where instead of the whole pies and cakes, it had all the slices of stuff. So we got a slice of pecan pie. We got, oh my God, we got a cannoli that would make the angels weep. It was so good. We got a lemon bar. Now, I told you last time.
Okay. Well, it makes sense.
Because the crust is thin and flaky and crispy. Mm-hmm. It's not exactly a pie crust, but it was divine. What else did we get? I think we got an eclair. We got some chocolate. We got a whole, I can't remember everything. The only thing that we didn't love was the cheesecake. It was cheesecake with like a chocolate dome over it.
Yes, I've seen those.
And it was neither as sweet as I expect cheesecake to be, nor did it have that savory flavor like you get from cream cheese or sour cream. Mm-hmm. So it was strangely neutral.
Oh.
But I'm sure there are people out there who love it. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't what we were expecting. And everything else on the board, we were just like...
So...
I set them all on a wooden cutting board, set them out, handed out 4 forks. And of course, my husband and my younger daughter were like, well, shouldn't we cut things up and have plates? And thing one and I are like, nope. You got a fork, go in.
Do it. Dive in. So Boone's Ayers is a Dutch bakery. It used to be walking distance from my house. Yeah. Let me tell you how bad that was for me. When I was pregnant,
but good.
They with their day old croissants, they would make this thing. It was so amazing. I've seen them at the grocery store now, and I tried one, and I was all, it's not the same.
You made the tater tot noise.
I did. So it was the day old croissants with whipped cream inside and fruit, like fresh fruit. Yeah. Usually kiwis and strawberries there because they make stuff. Too. Yeah. Oh, the fruit tart I used to get all the time. And I can't remember. I think there was also like a layer of custard, but I was all about the whipped cream and then powdered sugar over it. And I would eat these. They had to have been like 800 calories, but I ate so bad when I was pregnant. Yes. But, those things, like Jeff knew, just go get me one of their day old croissant things. But I also they have these little mini Black Forest tarts, but it's cake, but it's rolled. So you've got the whipped cream mixed in. Those are so good. It's always been one of my favorites there.
Did we get one of those?
No, you would know.
I got several things, so I can't remember exactly what everything was, because let me tell you, the cannoli and the lemon bar were just, and we got the slice of pecan pie, which was delicious, but I was like, it could not, the playing field was
way too, so we used to get the fruit tart all the time for stuff, but we did birthday cakes there for the longest time, and you can pick such an array of stuff. We were super lucky. So my son couldn't have red dye, red or yellow dyes. And so I wouldn't let him do cake in class when people did the birthday cake there. Well, one of his classmates through several of the years, his mom worked at Boone's Ayers. So she would bring in stuff for parties, and she would always bring a little cake for my son that was just the white cream, white cake, white frosting, but still amazing.
Well, yeah.
Oh my God. Oh, it was so good. Like, what a nice thing. Because I never expected people to cater to it. I wasn't like, nobody can have dye. But I was like, you can't, and I will take you out for something. Yeah. We will get you a treat when you get home, but you can't have it. And for him, he was really good about it. My daughter cheated on that all the time. Like, she was all, but I had candy today. And I'm like, damn it. But
I did that.
He always followed it, and then I'd take him for something special, like an ice cream cone or something.
When thing 2 was in, I can't remember if it was 4th grade or 5th grade. I think it was 4th grade. There was some party or something at school, and she told me that one of her classmates was gluten-free. So I just I think I got a box mix, but I made gluten-free chocolate chip cookies. And her mom happened to be at the party, so I said, by the way, I just want you to know, I made these are gluten-free. And I used this such and thus mix. And she was just like, oh my God.
Seriously, as the mother, I made a point to seek out that mom and just say, this is really awesome of you to do. And also, I eat it.
I was like, I'm not a dick. So I was like, how fair is it for her And it wasn't like one person's birthday. It was like a whole class thing. So I was like, well, she shouldn't have to just sit there and watch everyone.
Yeah, I would make... So my daughter couldn't have dairy, so I was pretty much in that world, right? So whenever I did treats, it was gluten-free, nut-free, dairy-free, but I had some amazing recipes. They were so good. Like, yeah. So I would always take those in. And then, like, Jeff later, my husband, would start doing his gluten-free cake pops.
Oh, my God. Those are the best cake pops.
Yeah. And it's really easy to make them gluten-free. So that was easy.
I made cake pops one time. I don't have the patience for little fiddly bits.
No, and he does. Because I'm actually the first one who made cake pops. Just for the record, out to the world, I was the first one who made cake pops. It was when he was on a business trip, actually. I made them with boy child. Then he started making them. I think there were a couple left when he got home. So, of course, he does it right because, I don't know.
It's the dipping them. That's the part I
The
don't
dipping
like.
one is the problem that I have, too. I just am no good at that.
It takes just...
It looks... I don't know how he gets them all smooth.
Right?
And then he started doing shapes.
Yeah.
So, like, he'll do Christmas tree ones with the green candy coating and then so on and so forth.
If I didn't like him so much, I'd hate him.
That's right. I told him when next to the pie bar, when they opened up a dispensary, right? I was like, we should set up a little stand outside the...
Like the Girl Scout cookies.
We should have a food truck for cake pops and we just set up outside dispensaries. Come on, there's got to be people doing that.
I would think so.
There have to be. You'd have to be an idiot not to set up in front of, like, Maggie's. I'd have a deal with Maggie's, which is down in Manitou Springs, so people know it's, like, the big dispensary for recreational,
there's
right?
Maggie's Farm? Maggie something.
Yeah, the big green one. There's
Emerald
always a line.
Emerald Fields and Maggie's Farm?
Yeah.
Something like that. Those are the two big ones.
Yeah, and there's lines.
Yes.
And I'm like, why are there no food trucks in that parking lot? Don't tell me they're going home to do it. A lot of them get in their car and suck that shit down. Hook them up. Because we were getting customers from the medical dispensary next door who were coming over for pie like, oh. They just come over and drool in the case. Because they went in their car and did it.
Oh, yeah.
So, anyway... I was just excited because we ate somewhere new, a grown-up place again.
I have to try. It's on my list now. I'm working late tomorrow. Maybe I'll say, we need to go get takeout for dinner.
They've got, what is it, clams? I don't know. But anyway, they have a big array of stuff. And just like fish, if you wanted fish. So, and they were super nice. Just, we got there and it was, let's go in and get something to go unless we see it's empty.
Right.
And it was 7:00. That's when we aim because then we have a good chance that it's empty.
Right.
And sure enough, there was one other table occupied, so we stayed and we ate. And
nice.
They were so friendly. Like there were 3 different women working there that day. They came and talked to us, and they were just super nice.
So at some point, Joe's going to listen to this and go, "That's why we went." To Bob's Lobster Trap.
Lobster Trap. And of course, you won't go over to Tapioca, but it's right next to Tapioca. I went and I got my tapioca pearls. But they have stuff that's not tapioca pearls.
That's true. And I
also,
do love
they have
all
macarons.
Things, I love teeth-related things, and I love a cookie. A macaron.
Yes, they were good.
It's totally a texture thing. I don't shun people who like the tapioca pearls. I just don't enjoy them myself.
They have fruit you can put in there, too. I put in mango.
In your tea?
I put it in a smoothie. They have smoothies there too, and they have coffee drinks, and they have
but if
tea.
you get a smoothie...
Oh, they have the blooming tea things there, by the way.
I've got a couple of those.
Yeah,
those
they have them there.
They're pretty.
So, it's not just tapioca pearls and They don't automatically force tapioca pearls on you.
Hold you down.
Calm your tits, really. They will give you tea without... weird things.
Well, we haven't been out together, and usually you're like, meet me at, and I say,
okay. And then we try to, there are so many new places in the last year that we're going to have to go to lunch at.
I know.
Damn it. Stupid pandemic. But, yeah. Anyway.
So what did you watch this week?
You know what? I have no movies that I can remember.
Okay.
But I started, this one I'm late on, Haunting of Bly Manor. Follow-up to The Haunting of Hill House. I like it. I think a lot of people complain that it was slow or something. It's different from the first one, which I'm happy about. It's not just a duplicate the success of the first one. It's a completely different story. It has some of the same actors in it, an American Horror Story type way where they're different people. But I'm enjoying it. I'm not quite done with it yet, but It's good stuff.
Oh,
I mean,
good.
I think it's set in the 80s because she's got 80s jeans on, like, all the time. So, but this babysitter from America she takes a position. She leaves the country. She takes a position as a nanny, or an au pair. And she's out at this. Their parents have died, and the uncle wants nothing to do with it. He's their legal guardian. So there's a housekeeper. I don't know what her proper term is, but I have to tell you, that woman, I don't know her name. I don't know any of the actors' names in this, except maybe the E.T. kid who's in it, because he was in the first one. But
okay.
Henry Thomas? I don't know.
Yeah, something
anyway,
like that.
The person who plays the housekeeper is stunning. And I'll just tell you, her cheekbones are astounding, but she's dressed so nice the whole time. And I'm like, why would you dress like that as a housekeeper? But she's stunning. Like, just, you'll see.
Okay.
Gorgeous. And the thing is, she has her hair, like, close shaved pretty much, right? Stunning. Okay. But anyway, and then there's a gardener, like a groundskeeper is the proper term. I don't know the rich people words. I got to work on those. And then they have a cook.
Ooh.
They have a guy who's there cooking, and he's taking care of, his mom has, I think it's all the way Alzheimer's, not just dementia. And so he's her caretaker, and he comes and he cooks, and then he gets home with her. But anyway, there's 2 little kids, and the little girl is freaking adorable. And I'll tell you when it got me, when I was just like, yeah.
I was going to say, it doesn't sound very scary.
Oh, yeah, it happened. And at first, there is no scare. It's a slow burn, and I had heard that ahead of time. So you see the little girl they're playing hide and seek, and she's in the attic, and it's this, just well done. You're looking at her from the front, right? Mm-hmm. And she's sitting there with her eyes closed, doing the counting or something. I don't remember, or just hiding. And you see a shape moving in the background, all slow and right. And you're like, oh shit, it's gonna happen, right? And I'm like, oh my god. And you're worried about the little girl, and then it starts moaning, right? And Jeff had just come upstairs, and he's like, what the hell is that? Right? And the little girl turns around and goes, shh, and turns back around, and I was like, oh hell yes. So that's where it got me.
Alrighty then.
And then I also watched Animaniacs. I put it on with the kids.
I have never watched that, but I've heard a lot about it.
So I totally forgot they were making a totally new one, that Hulu was relaunching it. And so I put it on thinking it was the original, but it's very close to the original. And the whole opening is like, they're singing a song, because this is what they do. They're the Warner Brothers and their sister Dot. And anyway, and they're singing, they're like, we're filming this a year, what was it? A year before it's going to come out. So, and we like to play on all the stuff that's out, and so let's talk about what's happened, but it's not the last year's worth. And then they're like, so let's decide what will happen in the next year. And it's all crazy. And I was like, oh, you guys didn't predict a pandemic, did you? I think they predicted an apocalypse, though, so fair.
Well.
But it had Pinky in the Brain, and it was just, the classic, but like the evil incorporated cell phones, because this came out in the 90s originally.
I never watched it when it came out the first. I wasn't the right age.
I didn't watch it fully, but it was a big thing in the the teen atmosphere at the time, because I was working. So I
see people posting about it now. I don't see any young people.
It's all our age.
People. Yeah. Thank you for that. Bless you, my child.
Bless you. But anyway, it was a kick, and the kids watched it and they laughed, and so that was fun. Like they got the jokes, so they brought it in so that it's But I haven't seen that. It's not like they've been begging me to watch it again or anything like that. But they enjoyed it, and I kept looking at them to see if they were getting the jokes. And
maybe I'll check that out. I'm much more likely to check out The Haunting of Bly Manor, but. So have you watched, are you watching WandaVision?
Yes. And
I haven't watched the most recent one Friday night.
Okay.
But it was the first 3, and I've seen other people talking about this. The first 3 episodes are so quirky and kind of funny. And man, when it goes dark hard, and it goes dark fast.
I will say that there is such a twist coming for this weekend that you didn't watch. Okay. Not to say, Jeff was like, told you. But, and he did say it, and I was like, I don't disagree, but I don't know. So, it's great. And it kind of gets introduced at the end, so now I'm really waiting for the next episode.
Oh, good.
But
I will probably, I forgot to record, I got to make sure I get out of here on time today, because I think the Golden Globes are on tonight.
Oh.
I'll have to.
I think I missed. Did I already? The Oscars are usually in February because they were on when I was in the hospital with Gabriel on his birthday, and that's next Friday.
Huh.
Is it the Golden Globes tonight or the Oscars?
Golden Globes.
Weird. I think the Golden Globes, I don't think they're usually a week apart. But I haven't even heard anything about the Oscars. It's not like I've been watching network television.
Everything has gotten moved around, and they're kind of weird.
Well, because they can't have an audience.
You can't have an audience, and people don't show up in person, so it's a televised...
Ugh. Some
of them. I mean, you can have some people there, but you can't have everybody who is nominated there, so how do you know who to have?
That's an excellent. How about you tell? I don't think I'm going to watch that. You tell me how that goes.
I will tell you how that goes.
Like, jot that down so that you...
So what I'll probably do is record it so I can fast forward when I get bored, and I'll watch WandaVision.
Okay.
So...
but they did still have the quirk in the WandaVision, and it was like... where she's, I'm trying to think what show it was, because each one is an era of a show.
Yes.
And she's sitting there, the episode is called Breaking the Fourth Wall. So she's talking to the camera about what's going on.
Oh, who did that? Who started?
I was trying to think, it was like
TV?
30 something. Was there a parenting show that did that?
I didn't
watch that show, but it's so familiar, and that's what popped in my head for some reason. But yeah,
Ferris Bueller did it, but that was a movie.
Yeah, no. I remember there was a show where somebody would talk. And I didn't watch it. I just remembered that's what it was.
Parker Lewis Can't Lose?
Maybe.
I don't know.
But a parenting show, because she's copying parenting shows, like family shows.
I don't know.
Yeah, anyway.
I'll see if it rings any bells when I watch it. But the other thing I've been watching, because it just makes me laugh so much, is Resident Alien.
I know. Don't talk to me. I don't have cable.
You're gonna love it.
And you have to have Hulu Supreme Grandmaster or
I think you have to have the free.
Have
you have to have the free Sci-Fi app, and you can watch it.
Yeah, really. Got another fucking app though.
I know.
I'm really tired of.
I know.
And every time we try and start watching a TV show like that, we give up on it because we get tired of getting to. I don't know. Because we started watching Justified through some extra thing when it came. Still haven't finished it. Because we never went back because it was a pain in the ass. We had to maneuver somewhere different. I know. Wow. First world problems.
No, I haven't finished Ray Donovan because I got some service with the pandemic. Yeah. And then the service ended and then it came out somewhere else. And I'm like, I don't even know where I am.
Yeah. That's the thing too, is I want to catch up on Preacher because we started watching it when we were borrowing my sister's Hulu. Oh. And then once we had Hulu ourselves, it was, oh crap. We don't know where we were. Oh. So I didn't note the episode. So then we figure we have to start over and it's been long enough.
Weird fucking show.
It is. But we have a
friend
I
enjoyed it.
Her husband looks just like Preacher.
Yes. Hi, Sue. I hope you're listening.
Hi, Sue Mitchell. Shout out. And Bill.
He does. It's uncanny.
Yeah. So.
I'm like marking stuff off on my list.
Did you actually watch any movies this week, or were we both non-movie?
No.
Did you read?
I did. I found a book by Fannie Flagg.
Oh, yeah.
Excuse me, that I hadn't read. Because, of course, everybody's read Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe, Daisy Faye and the Miracle Man. There's a couple others. And they're always really super quirky. Mm. And I generally enjoy that. This was called Can't Wait to Get to Heaven. And
okay,
it was not my favorite.
Was this made into a movie?
I have absolutely no idea. Could be. It's a woman. So, of course, there is a main character, but you have so many characters in the town that are part of the storyline. That's one thing I do like about her writing. And it's so beautifully, gently Southern, as opposed to realistic.
Well, the Fried Green Tomato, I haven't read it. I've watched it. But gently Southern, I mean, she kills and cooks a man. Right?
Well, they kill him and somebody else cooks them. But...
Well, yeah, and it's done so gently.
Just, you don't see it on screen.
No.
So, but in this one, the main character is this older woman who lives by herself, and her, I'm like, is it her niece and niece's husband kind of take care of her, and she doesn't need taking care of, but they look out for her, and he stops and has coffee with her every morning on his way to work. Well, she climbs a ladder. She has a fig tree, so she decides she wants to make fig preserves. climbs the ladder in the fig tree and gets stung by a bunch of hornets. Doesn't know there's a hornet's nest. She falls off the ladder. So her neighbors are calling the 911. I swear I heard a cat.
Oh, you did. That's Nefertiti trying to get into my son's room.
But the upshot is they take her to the hospital and she dies. Oh. So then you follow her as she ascends to the next place.
No, it wasn't.
And then they decide it's not your time yet and send her back. So, and it's what happens after that. The thing I didn't like about, I do love Fanny Flagg. I love her books. While she was in heaven, that piece of the book, just the writing was so simplistic. I don't know. It just seemed like it was written by somebody else. There was less. It was the plot line was just straight line. And it almost seemed like it was dumbed down.
I felt that way about the last Laurel K. Hamilton book I tried to read, and because I'd been disenchanted with those for a while, and I had loved that that initial series of hers, Anita Blake, and it went downhill for me. Okay, because it came pretty porny. I mean, it was all about who she can have sex with in this book, how many times with how many people at one time, or will they be in beast form, or blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, I'm over this. But you're welcome, listening audience, if you can hear my cat scratching at my son's door for the fourth time.
I missed her solving a mystery.
Well, the writing had changed. Yes. And the writing had changed, and it had become more simplistic, and it really weirded me out because we're talking vocabulary, simplicity, it seemed like she'd lost the dynamics of writing. And the fact that you can do that, of course, is panic inducing for writers. But I was like, did somebody else write this? It wasn't her voice. It was very simple. And I just couldn't get engaged in it. And I don't remember which one it was. But anyway, that makes me think of that. That can happen. I mean, Stephen King's writing changed, sure. But it's still, you can still tell it's Stephen King when you read it. He still has that kind of literary mastery hidden underneath the horror, that people miss. But you can tell it's changed, but you can tell it's him. And I didn't feel that with the Laurel K. Hamilton book I read. How about with the Fanny Flagg? I don't remember. It was a few years ago, and I just stopped trying.
It was really weird because it was just that one part in the middle of the book. And so I have to think it was intentional. Either it was ghost written or it was intentional.
Okay.
That things are simpler and more beautiful. And I don't know. So, something you got me addicted to now, I'm blaming you for this.
Yay.
You're
welcome.
It's a Facebook group called Zillow Gone Wild.
Yeah.
Holy crap! If you guys aren't looking at this, so Zillow is for people hunting for houses. So Zillow Gone Wild is a collection of the most out there. There was one where all the carpeting and the bedding. Well, we've seen a house that was all purple.
Yep.
But the
one
walls,
with the beer cans on the walls.
The one, all of the walls covered, paneled in beer cans. There was the one that was all green. The one that was all red.
The one that the wallpaper matched the comforters.
Oh, the one where the basement. I mean, it's a huge basement. These huge, beautiful rooms full of very large and I imagine expensive and elaborate sex toys.
Yes.
I mean, pieces of furniture, sex toys.
You're like, this is a nice house. Oh, what a nice room. Oh, what is that now?
And I'm like, would that not? I don't understand the point of putting that in your real estate listing, because I would think you'd run the risk of it turning a lot of people off.
Yeah. And unless you're selling the sex toys with the house, I mean, honestly, just store them for a little while. Well, can you maybe have some vanilla sex?
Would you want someone's used sex toys?
No, but that's the thing. I'm like, why did they keep
look
it out?
expensive.
The house is clean. The house is obviously ready for sale. And they've still got their... Did they think that maybe people just wouldn't know what they were?
Or people would come by to look at the house just to see the sex toy.
Could be. I mean, maybe they thought that was a draw.
So there was one today that it was all this, whoever owned the house, and it was a decent sized house. It wasn't a huge mansion. Some of them are mansions, but this one was just a nice sized house, but it was full of dressed and posed mannequins there was a lot of very religious artifacts on the walls.
Oh, I didn't even see that part. I just saw the mannequins.
Oh, look across from the couch. There's a lot of angel-themed stuff. Then there's like in the bathroom, there's a big statue, like a big naked Greek statue, and he's peeing But then, so the bathroom also has all these weird mannequins, and they're dressed and posed, but there's like a gold ceramic pumpkin on the sink. That was what caught my eye. I'm like freaking out because of all these mannequins and all this religious iconic stuff. And then I'm like, what is the fucking pumpkin doing here? What is the point? Who said this room needs a pumpkin? Somebody has to explain that to me.
Who's somebody, please? Or it's like if they had one of those little precious moments statues just randomly.
Yeah.
I didn't actually get to look through it yet because I just saw it on the phone. Oh. But, I mean, they even had a mannequin like leaning over onto a sofa or one of those. And I'm like, do you have to move the mannequin to sit there, you weirdo?
Or when you sit there, is there someone looming over you?
Yeah. So I love the crazy stuff these are most of them are houses that have sold recently. They're like sold for this much, and I'm like, but why? There was one I'm looking through and I couldn't figure out what was weird about it, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm just scrolling, and then all of a sudden it looked like a duplex or something, but it had to have been much bigger. There's an entire bike ramp system, the big boom, and I just started laughing because I'm like, what the hell? All right, that's why it's abnormal. I haven't looked at For the Love of Old Houses, which is the Facebook group I'm really addicted to.
Yes, I
but
love
even
that
Jeff,
too.
like this week, because I've been looking at Italy, because I just kind of went out of this country and have for a while, but I've been looking at Italy, and I have to tell you, it's so beautiful and I want to go there. But Jeff this week goes, what? No houses from Italy to show me? Because he shut down his Facebook page because he's never been big on Facebook anyway. So I've been, whenever he comes over, I'm like, okay, I have some houses to show you. You have to come here. And then I make him look at the houses. And he was under enthusiastic about that to begin with because I thought he doesn't really want to look at the houses. But now he's like, you didn't find any houses in Italy? Like, how are we supposed to move there?
Well, speaking of sending your husband things you found. So I was looking on Facebook Marketplace. Every once in a while. Gosh. I just click on it to see what's there. And sometimes I laugh. And sometimes I'm like, who took the picture? I'm like, because I can't even tell. It's like chair. And I'm like, seriously? I cannot tell that by looking at the picture. So I'm clicking around. I'm looking at stuff, just amusing myself. I had a few minutes. And I find an RV. Mm-hmm. A 1990s, mid to late 1990s RV. It's in Denver. It's $2,500.
Huh.
And I sent it to him and I was like, And he never responded. So I was like, did you not get that? And he looked at it and he goes, are you having a midlife crisis?
Hey, you could go somewhere in it because it's self-contained.
Right?
It's your own, so no COVID.
I'm like, it's $2,500. Does that not merit looking at it?
Maybe.
I said, obviously, I said, I'm not saying I'm going to wire this person money. But I'm like, it's up in Denver. We'd have to have our mechanic, check it out. And I said, and I'd have to have somebody who knew RVs check it out. Yeah. I'm not going to just go shell out money and then go, why, look, it's full of termites or turds or whatever.
Or like when my husband test drove a truck when we were trying to find a flatbed for house cabin stuff. And that tire literally went boop and rolled down a hill. And he had to call the guy and be like, I need you to come get me.
That's awful.
And needless to say, I'm not buying the truck.
I'm glad he
offered him less for it, though. He was like, I can fix this, but I'm not paying what you're asking. The guy was like, no, I need what I'm asking. And he's like, the tire came off while I was driving. And something else crazy happened, too.
That's horrible.
I've seen RVs on For the Love of Old Houses, and those are fun because it's always like the old style with the silver or whatever.
And this wasn't a very big, it wasn't the giant one. It's the one that looks like it's on what used to be a truck. Or, the front of it looks like a truck. And I was like, it just looks so cozy. We could go places. I want it. So maybe next time I have a weekend off, I'll say, we could just go look at it.
There's those things. I thought your neighbor had one that was like the little ones we looked at, and they're like the mini something or other.
They have a pop up. There's a. Theirs is a mini Bago, or it's a mini Winnie, or
yeah.
Yeah.
I think we looked at those at one point, but they're pricey.
They really like theirs. They got theirs. They got a really good bargain on theirs. Mm-hmm. So they used to have a pop-up camper, then they got that one.
Got you. Okay, so sounds right. Yeah. So when we were looking at property, we weren't just looking at ones with cabins on. In fact, there were very few because cabin makes it cost a lot more. But one of them we looked at, which was down around Walsenburg, which is on the way to where our cabin is. Mm-hmm. It was coming with this massive like luxury RV because that's what they were staying in while they were building stuff. But it had electrical to it.
Did we drive by that? Did you point that out to me? Or
no. Okay. I might have said I think it's in that general region, but we never went and saw it. But I was looking at that thing. I was like, oh my God, Jeffrey, we could use this one year round and take it from the cabin if we got this. So I was really, but it wasn't treed. It was like the scrub.
Oh.
And some of those are actually trees that are over your head a little, but it's the pinyon pines.
Yep.
And so that was a killer for us, even though it had so much stuff that we would have wanted otherwise. But of course, then I found that cabin popped up, and we called them the day it popped up, the one we ended up getting, because I was like, oh my God.
Well, the little motorhome has been there. It's not a brand new listing. It's been there. I mean, it hasn't been there a year, but it's been there a couple of weeks anyway. So I'm like, I can talk him into just
do it. Then we can do riding retreats in it. Also, we're at like 40-something minutes.
Oh, well, we got to get going then. All right. Well, mine is not very long this week because it just isn't.
Mine is not as long as some of mine. How about that? It's in the middle.
Oh, that leaves us some leeway. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the Rockefeller family curse. And yes, I did. I looked at Wikipedia.
It's okay, no shame.
There's a site called Ranker.com.
Yep. I love Ranker for true crime, by the way.
And The Rake. A website called The Rake. So I did do just a little bit looking at, because you can't talk about John D. Rockefeller without talking about Standard Oil.
Yep.
So I'm just going to barely touch on that.
Did you see Henry Flagler at all?
Yes, because I mentioned him.
Yay!
So a lot of people. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background because I grew up hearing, well, we're not rich. He's rich as a Rockefeller, or we're not rich as the Rockefellers. But the family was from New York. I grew up in upstate New York. So, and let me tell you, Wikipedia says that John D. Rockefeller was born in upstate New York. They're very wrong. He was born in rural New York. It wasn't upstate. But anyway, just setting that straight. So, John D. Rockefeller was born in 1839. He was the co-founder of Standard Oil in 1870 with Henry Flagler, who you talked about on the Wacky Florida episode, February 17th. And also, who you never hear about, his brother William Rockefeller.
Oh.
You never hear about him. It was once the largest oil refinery in the world. Mm-hmm. The world. It was the first and largest multinational corporation until 1911, when the Supreme Court ruled that Standard Oil was an illegal monopoly.
Oh yeah, they're the ones who made it necessary to have antitrust laws.
Yes. John D. was the chairman until he retired in 1897, and he was the major shareholder afterward, and he was the richest person in modern history.
Like now?
Yeah.
When they do the
when they when they do the adjustments.
Wow.
So, the Rockefellers did not invent monopolies, but they sure polished them. Mm-hmm. They sure polished them. Here's the thing, though. I'm not defending them. I'm not excoriating them. I'm not defending them. Everyone I researched did a lot of philanthropic work.
Yes. I question the motivation.
Well, yeah.
They also, when I read about Henry Flagler, were dirty, dirty dealers. So,
oh, yeah, they were.
Yeah.
I guess when you have money coming out of your ass, it's easy to give it to good causes.
When I was reading about Flagler and then with you talking, I think it's funny because the whole Animaniacs thing, but I thought of, because they wanted to have the monopoly in the entire world, and they did for a while, and it just made me think of Pinky and the Brain that first time.
Yes.
So what are we doing today, Brain? The same thing as every week. Taking over the world.
So the last 40 years of his life, John D. Rockefeller lived in Westchester County, New York, which is expensive place to live, even now. But he was, the last 40 years of his life were devoted to philanthropy, because he'd done all the raping and pillaging, so, he could afford to...
He was probably trying to get into heaven or something, as they do.
So I took a quote directly from Wikipedia. His fortune was mainly used to create the modern systematic approach of targeted philanthropy through the creation of foundations that had a major effect on medicine, education, and scientific research. So his reach was fucking enormous. And he had fingers in every pie.
He had to, because he's the name we hear, and I never heard Flagler.
Yeah. So he founded the University of Chicago and Rockefeller University. Plus, he funded the Central Philippine University in the Philippines. He was right?
That's random.
I don't know why. He was a devout Northern Baptist. You only hear about Southern Baptists. I didn't even know Northern Baptists were a thing.
That's surprising. I understand. I would think Southern Baptist because was my family. But
they seem to have a lot in common. I don't know. I didn't study this, so please don't yell at me if I got that wrong. Anyhow, he was a devout Northern Baptist. I mean, he taught Sunday school. He worked if the church needed to be swept, he swept the church. He did janitorial stuff at the church.
Yeah, I really do think he was just trying to get in good with his big guy.
I'm sure he was. But he also abstained from alcohol and tobacco his whole life. He married Laura Spellman. They had 5 children together, 4 daughters and a son. And he always credited his wife with being the brains of the operation. He always said she made the best decisions. She gave him good guidance.
I will say this for him. He seemed to be very willing to hand out credit, because he was also, again, sorry, but going back to Flagler, he made a big point of saying that Flagler was very much the brains on their board. So he was happy to hand out recognition to people and kind of push it away from himself, which I will say does, to me, read in a positive light.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in his 50s, he developed mild depression. I'm like,
oh, welcome to the club, bud.
I was like, who fucking doesn't? I mean, realistically, it took
you waited so long.
You waited till your 50s? Digestive troubles and alopecia. Oh. And in 1901, he started wearing toupees. I don't know why. That cracked me up. So he died in 1937 at the age of 97. So far, so good, because nothing here sounds really cursed. I mean, boo-hoo, he lost his hair. He lost his hair, and he has a lot of gas. I don't know.
And he's sad about it.
So, in 1951, his niece, so remember he founded this Standard Oil with his brother William. So this is William's daughter. His niece, Winifred Rockefeller, Emily. That's a really hard name to say because it's spelled like enemy, but the M and the N.
Oh, yeah. Your brain's like, yeah.
Yeah, my brain doesn't want to go there. So, Winifred Rockefeller Emily killed herself and her 2 daughters, who were ages 6 and 12 at the time. She went into the garage and started 2 cars and left them running. I mean, it was purposeful. It wasn't like she forgot about them. And a maid came home and was looking for her and heard the cars running, heard the motors in the garage and found them. And I'm like, if you gotta kill yourself, so be it. But you don't always got to take
their kids with
them.
them.
You don't get to take other people with you. That's a dick move.
It is a dick move.
So, John D. Rockefeller's youngest child was John Jr., who was born in 1874. For 20 or more than 20 years, he was the CEO of Chase Manhattan. So, yeah, what a tough life. And this is really with the niece and with the youngest child, John Jr., this is where the curse starts. His first wife, So his first wife, Abby, died at home of a heart attack at age 45.
Oh.
Yeah. And they had 5 sons and 1 daughter together. So, son Winthrop. So, you have to understand, I'm sitting on the couch, got the TV on in the background, and Joe walks up the stairs. And my husband didn't spend his entire childhood in Arkansas, but he did spend a lot of his formative years there, and his dad was from there, and So I said, hey, what do you know about Winthrop Rockefeller? And he goes, the governor of Arkansas. And he starts spouting off all this stuff he remembers. And I'm reading the names in the Wikipedia article as he's going, oh, and didn't he defeat so-and-so? And then he got defeated by, and I was like, holy shit.
Wow. I asked my husband in the last episode, because he'd been to friggin' Harrogate, which is a small town, and like seen the wall in Yorkshire and all this stuff. I was like, oh, do you know of the Hydra Spa had been renamed? It's like Swan something. And I was like, hey, have you heard of this building? And I showed it to him, and he's like, I don't know, they all look the same there. And then you asked Joe, and he's like, let me tell you the entire history.
Yeah, pretty much. So anyway, Winthrop. This is John Jr.'s son, Winthrop. Now, it's unclear because some places say he was ejected from Yale and others said he left Yale. He wasn't getting the grades. But he enlisted in the Army and fought in World War II. And he actually had several commendations, including a Purple Heart.
Good for him, because, rich people often get to skip out.
He was in the infantry.
Heels first.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So he moved to Arkansas in 1953. And among a lot of good works that he did, he opened a lot of medical clinics in the poorer areas of Arkansas. In 1966, this blew me away. In 1966, he was elected the first Republican governor of Arkansas since Reconstruction, which was about 1887. So like 80 some years. First Republican governor.
Holy
cow. And he was reelected in 1968, and apparently, like, what the? My brain just stopped and it said, what is the word you just said? Because it was wrong. Apparently, he worked on the integrating Arkansas schools.
Oh.
Which is a pleasant change.
Yes.
So, Winthrop's first wife, and I don't know how to pronounce her name, was an actress. Her first name is spelled Jievute. Javute? I don't even know where she was from. But her nickname was Bobo.
That's way easier. Yeah, that's
and
flattering.
her last name was Plekiute.
Polish?
I don't know. So they had a son. They had a son also named Winthrop. So his second wife, so they were divorced. He married his second wife, Jeanette Edris, who had, while she was the first lady of Arkansas, she took a great interest in mental health issues. Yep. But apparently she didn't want to be married when he was no longer the governor. So in September of 1972, he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and he died in February of 1973 at the age of 60.
I'm a little freaked out by how common pancreatic cancer is.
Yeah, and that's a fast...
Because it's supposed to be nasty, right?
Yes.
Colon cancer, too.
Yes. So, Winthrop the Younger, Winthrop's son Winthrop, was elected lieutenant governor of Arkansas in 1996, reelected in 98 and 2002, had 3 children with his first wife, Deborah, had 5 children with his second wife, Lisanne. He also died of cancer, this time in 2006 at the age of 57.
Dude.
That's not a...
Screech from Saved by the Bell just died at 43.
Screech died?
Yeah, he was the dick anyway, actually.
He really was.
Diamond, but he's the same age as me. I think it was a heart attack.
I did not hear that he had died.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, last week, I think.
Oh, I somehow missed it.
So, mid-February, when you're listening to this later.
Okay, so, I'm like, whose son was Nelson? Nelson was Winthrop Sr. Okay, so Winthrop's son, Nelson, now this is where I know the Rockefeller name from, because I can, it was vaguely in the stratosphere when I was a child, the name of Rockefeller. Winthrop's son, Nelson, was governor of New York from 1959 to 1973.
That's fine.
There was a little tiny space in there for 2 years when he wasn't. But he was also the vice president. From December of 74 to January of 77, he was appointed by Ford after Nixon resigned.
Okay.
So Ford became president and he appointed Nelson Rockefeller. Nelson's first wife, Mary Todd Hunter Clark, the two of them had 5 children together. This is where the story gets freaky and weird.
Say Mary Todd.
Todd Hunter.
No, it wasn't Mary Todd Lincoln?
Yes.
Okay.
Mary Todd married Abraham Lincoln. So son Michael disappeared in New Guinea in 1961. And at first, he was presumed to have drowned when his dugout canoe capsized. But when they found the body, or parts of it, they first speculated that he was swimming to the shore and was eaten by a shark. But further investigation and evidence seemed to indicate that he did make it to shore, but was killed and eaten by cannibals.
Oh!
If that's not a curse, I don't know what is.
Jeez. I think I'd prefer the shark, maybe.
I don't even... I would prefer...
Not being eaten?
Yeah, I would prefer the drowning, frankly. So his second wife was Margareta Happy Fittler. And he...
All right.
And had 2 sons. So with Mary, he lived on the top 3 floors of an apartment building in New York. After the divorce, she kept the top 2 floors, and he and his second wife lived on the 3rd floor, plus space from an adjacent building. So to go to the adjacent building, there was a little staircase. It was 6 steps. I know, first world problems.
Wow.
Nelson, however, and I'm not casting aspersions. This is well documented. Nelson could not keep it in his pants.
He just flapped it around everywhere.
He was putting it everywhere he could. There is speculation that Happy's last child with her first husband was actually Nelson's child. There was also, he was a patron of the psychic Edward Case.
Oh, yeah.
Now, where you might have heard of Nelson Rockefeller is because he died of a heart attack in 1979 at the home of his 25-year-old aide, who was another suspected lover. Now, for some reason, between the time he had the heart attack and the time the ambulance was called, an hour went by. So that's kind of unaccounted for. Mm-hmm. So John Jr., we're going to skip back a step. John Jr.'s son, John the Third, was killed in a car accident in 1978, hit by a teenage driver. John Jr.'s grandson, who worked in the field of PTSD treatment, was killed on his way home from his father's 99th birthday celebration when his private plane that he was piloting crashed. If you're rich, for
Sounds
God's
like a
sake,
Kennedy problem.
right? If you are rich, do not fly your own fucking plane.
No.
Fly commercial.
Harrison Ford seems to do okay.
He crashed.
He rescues people. I know he has, but he's rescued people from a river
crashed.
or something.
It's the crash.
It's true, but he didn't die. But did he die though?
So yeah, I'm just like, it's except for the one niece, it's like it does not pay to be a male in the
No, and these
Rockefeller
were
family.
when I was doing the Guinness family. I was like, yeah, rich people problems, because it was like OD, car accident, gypsy caravan accident.
Yes, and some of these were accidents, but it's like cancer and heart attack, and
so not so much rich people problems. They're the They're the great equalizers among us that they took them out.
Perhaps if you weren't chasing your 25-year-old aide around the living room.
Yep.
I don't know. I don't get the attraction to power.
I've never,
for power's sake.
Yeah, where they go for the dude with the liver spots on his bald dome. And
if someone is powerful and charismatic and funny.
See, those people tend to oog me out though. Like when I'm around somebody who has a certain charisma, then I'm instantly like, why? What'd you do? What are you doing?
Well, no.
Are you a serial killer?
Not that much charisma, but likable.
Yeah.
But no, I've never understood the attraction to people, to power for power's sake. I'm not that person.
Nah, we're not the target audience there.
No.
I guess. All right, I should jump in really quick, or
yeah. So okay, that is the Rockefeller family curse. And actually, after Nelson Rockefeller died, it's not part of the curse, but there's what are called fakeafellers.
Oh.
There are all these people who claim to be related to them who are not.
Yeah. I'm sure that Ancestry did a lot for all that crap too, because then there are people who are distantly related and they find out and they're like, I should be part of the family.
Probably everybody's related to Nelson.
Everybody's related to everybody, honestly, when you go back far enough.
That's true. That's very true.
All right. So, fascinating. I still want to study like Rockefeller at some point. Just because, you hear what you hear, but you don't hear everything. And then researching Flagler made it all very interesting. Mm-hmm. So, okay. I'm doing the Keddie Cabin murders. I need to get started. We're at an hour.
Oh, yeah. We're running long. Sorry.
Or known as the Keddie murders. They occurred in Keddie, California. That's Keddie, in 1981, sometime the night of April 11th or early morning of April 12th. Sue Sharp, I think her real first name was Glenna, but she always went by Sue, so that's what I'm calling her for the rest of this, had separated from her abusive husband and fled Connecticut for California because her brother lived in California. I think he lived in Quincy, which was close by. I think they said 7 miles distance. They moved into a 2-bedroom cabin, number 28, at the Keddie Resort after briefly living in a trailer park. It did also have a basement, and that's where her teenage son slept. But everybody else shared bedrooms on the top floor. So the resort had been made into low-income housing by that time. It used to be a huge, the railroad passed through, and so this resort was based around that at first, and then it changed to a resort, and then they lost all tourism. So then he made it low-income housing. She had 5 kids. John was her oldest at 15. Sheila was 14. Tina was 12. Rick 10, and Greg 5. She supported them with a stipend from the Navy during the divorce proceedings with her husband because he was Navy, and with a job at the Quincy Elks Lodge for a while. On the night of April 11th, 1981, John and his friend Dana, which is a male, attended a party in Quincy but returned later that night at an unknown time. Sheila, the 14-year-old, stayed overnight with a friend at the Seabolt's home, which was the cabin next door.
That's right.
Yeah. Her younger sister had been over there but returned home at about 9:30 p.m. So that's like the last definite time we have for anything is 9:30 p.m. When Sheila came home at 7 a.m. to get her church clothes to go to church with the Seabolts, on the 12th, she discovered her mom. She opened the front door, and it opened right into the living room. And all she saw was blood and bodies and a hammer.
Ugh.
So she discovers her older brother, John, her brother's friend Dana, and her mom have been brutally murdered in the living room. They're bound, and they are covered in blood. Her younger brothers, along with a friend who had stayed the night, were in their room sleeping. So their friend Justin Smart had stayed over that night. I mean, it's all very normal. Your kid stays here, and these kids. It seemed like a good community. Sheila ran back to the Seabolts, told them what had happened. The father went to the cabin. He stepped inside to make sure none of the victims were alive, to check.
Right.
And he then went back outside, or some of them had that order reversed, but he knocked on the bedroom window. The boys were, and he pulled them out through the window so they would not have to walk through the
that
bodies.
Was smart thinking.
It was smart, yeah.
And compassionate.
Yes, undoubtedly. Because they were 10, 5, and however old the Justin kid was. I think he was maybe around 10. Oh. So, anyway, he pulls out the kids. They call the police. Police are on the scene by 8 a.m. So, within an hour, the police are there. It wouldn't be until noon that day that anyone realized there was a missing child. Tina was not there. Tina was the 12-year-old. Mm-hmm. Her body was not there. Okay? By then, her kidnappers were long gone with her.
Oh.
Hours. And who knows what time it had occurred. So, gone. There's no chance of finding her at that point. But they tried. The 3 murder victims were bound with medical tape and electric cords and had been beaten and stabbed. Sue, the mother, had been gagged with her own underwear and a bandana. Though she had no pants on, police found no sign of sexual assault. She had been struck with, take that for what it's worth. She had been struck with a hammer and a BB gun in the head. Her throat had been slashed, and she'd been stabbed multiple times, but there was a major stab wound in her chest. Oddly, her body was found to have been moved after the murder because the blood pattern showed that her legs had been splayed when she was killed. When they found her, which I don't understand because her ankles were supposed to have been bound. But anyway, when they found her, she was lying on her side with everything bound. And quite a sophisticated binding system set up there. So I don't know if she was hogtied. They didn't actually say hogtied. But a blanket had been placed over her. Dana and John also had head injuries and stab wounds, but Dana had been strangled, the friend, and John's throat had been slashed like his mom's. Both of their bodies had been moved after death as well, but they had not been covered up. On the floor, in fact, they were bound to each other. It was like the bindings from one's wrist, John's wrist or ankles were bound to Dana's ankles.
Oh.
It was, just all over the place. There was a thicker tape that had been used on Dana. He was bigger and stronger than John was. And one of the things I read said that, like, some of his tape had become disconnected, so I don't know if then they bound him with the electrical tape, because here in a moment, they say there were no defensive wounds on either of the boys.
That's so bizarre.
If he'd gotten loose, he would have fought, surely.
Yes.
He's a 15-year-old boy. So, yeah, I don't know if maybe they did the electrical cords after that. Who knows? On the floor was a bloodied hammer, 2 knives. One was a steak knife from their kitchen that was bent so severely that when Sheila walked in, she thought it was a pocket knife slightly open. Ooh. So they had bent it with the viciousness of their stabs. And a plastic piece off of a BB gun. In some of the later research, it sounded like it was part of a sight of a BB gun that had broken off. And a bloody print was found on the exterior railing, like a palm print. There were also bloodstains found on Tina's bedding. She shared a room with her older sister and her mom. So she would have been in bed when this started happening late at night. But it turns out that the bedding that was found on Sue was from Tina's bed. Whoever had covered her up had gotten it from Tina's bed, so that makes sense. And I'll say why that matters here in a moment. So that's likely the reason for presence of blood in her room. So let me see. Yeah, Sue was the only one who had defensive wounds. She had obviously fought. They said that she fought hard. And there were signs of it, especially on her arms, like blocking probably knives, hammers, right? So, but no defensive wounds on the 2 boys. And they had these BB guns, so who knows if they thought maybe it was a real gun or something like that. And so that was how they were able to cow them. Nobody knows. The Seabolts next door hadn't heard anything. Nobody saying that Sheila didn't hear anything. Nobody heard anything.
Well, the children were asleep in the next room.
Yeah, that's a crazy part, and I'm going to bring it up more. But another couple in the park said that they had heard muffled screams at around 1:30 in the morning, but they hadn't been able to tell where they're coming from. Then they stopped. So they were like, somebody's partying. They went back to bed. So that may establish the time of death. So there was no forced entry. The door hadn't been broken in. The lights were off. The curtains were closed. The phone was off the hook. Tina's coat and shoes were gone, along with a box of tools. It was like a shoebox of tools or something, and I never found more explanation of that. So wherever she was, someone had her grab her coat and shoes before they took her. Justin's dad, Martin Smart, and Justin was the boy that was staying there, said one of his hammers had recently disappeared. And his wife said she found Tina's bloody jacket in their basement and gave it to the police, but there's no record of this being true. We're going to talk more about that later, too. So there's a claim that she said later, yeah, I found a bloody jacket and I gave it to the police. There's the Smarts, they're complicated.
Okay.
So apparently they just kept trying to establish alibi after, like, here's why it couldn't have been me. Like the hammer. Oh yeah, my hammer's missing. It was a blue-handled hammer. It was not the one found there. But there were multiple hammers used. Only one was left behind.
Oh.
Yeah. 2 strange vehicles had been noted in the area the night before. Multiple people in the resort said they'd seen a green van parked at the Sharps cabin around 9 p.m. So around when Sheila headed over to her neighbor, but I didn't hear any more questioning of Sheila about that. But anyway, there was also a brown Datsun parked there with a tire that was going flat. Justin Smart is thought to have witnessed a portion of the crime. At first, all the boys said they slept through it, and they had a TV going in their room. So that might be why they were able to sleep through it, or they were watching TV before bed. So, you're having a sleepover, you stay up later than usual every bloody time. So he started saying he was having dreams about the murder. And in his dreams, he covered Sue up with a blanket. In fact, he said something about grabbing towels, and there's nothing about bloody towels, but holding towels to her chest to stop the bleeding and then covering her with the blanket. So, más o menos, right? Like the blanket was there. And actually, and one of the things I read later, it was a blanket and the sheet from Tina's bed. So anyway, he was later hypnotized to get more information. Police sketches were made of the 2 men he claimed to have seen talking to Sue. I will be posting those sketches. They both wore gold-framed sunglasses at night. He remembered gold-framed sunglasses. He said they were all just talking, like the 2 men were talking to Sue. Mm-hmm. And because he peeked out of his room. And then John and Dana came in and a confrontation occurred of some sort. Then there was arguing. And then he said that a fight started, that Tina came wandering out of her room, and that one of the men took her outside. So this is what he said under hypnotism. But he said the men were said to be in their 20s or 30s. So I don't know. Did he look old like me or old like him?
Yeah.
White. One blonde, one with black hair that was greased back. It should be noted, they even had height. So I was like, he doesn't fucking know. But anyway, were they taller or shorter than Sue? I don't know.
That's how they would have had to
Yeah.
ask it.
It should be noted there had been plenty of opportunity for him to have seen news stories before the hypnosis.
Okay.
And also when tapes were listened to later, they felt that the police were making suggestions in their questions. So a child under hypnosis.
Yep.
Who knows? But the blanket thing's interesting because why is she covered up?
Yeah.
Okay. Police spent a significant amount of time investigating the murders. It was something like 4,000 man-hours or something. The FBI came in to investigate Tina's disappearance briefly and then just went away and said, they're handling it. Yep. It was like a month or something, and then they were gone again. Many suspects were interviewed, including a man who disappeared right after the murders who was found in Oregon. He wasn't found to be part of the crime, but his leaving right after...
Well, yeah.
It wouldn't be until April 22nd, 1984, almost 4 years later, that they found a portion of a human skull and mandible at a camp nearly 100 miles away from Keddie. An anonymous call came in saying the remains belonged to Tina, and a forensic pathologist confirmed it in June by her dental records.
Oh my God.
Her jacket and jeans were found nearby, along with a blanket and a surgical tape container, an empty dispenser. Mm-hmm. They were unable to determine her cause of death because she was just bones at this point, and it was just bone fragments. They found her skull and mandible. I don't know how much else they ever found. In 2008, Marilyn Smart, Justin's mother and Martin's wife, Martin Smart was the stepfather of Justin.
Okay.
And the one who said she turned in a bloody coat from her basement, stated she was pretty sure her husband Martin Smart and his friend Bo Bobeed, I'm probably mispronouncing it, committed the murders. The three had been drinking at a bar that night. Then she'd gone to bed around 11 p.m. and the two men had changed into nice suits and returned to the bar. Her impression was they wanted to be noticed there, that they were at the bar. She was awakened at 2 a.m. to find the two men burning something in the fireplace. The one, Bo Bobeed, was living with them for a little while. It's also noted that the county sheriff who led investigations on the incident, Doug Thomas, was a good friend of Martin Smart's.
Oh.
So, Sheriff Doug Thomas said it wasn't possible. He had personally interviewed Martin, and Martin had passed polygraph, so it could not have been him who committed the murders. Bobeed and Martin Smart, by the time of this 2008 documentary that she was interviewed in, had both died. They had split up. Marilyn had left like the week after the murders and moved, and it's believed she moved in with somebody she'd been having an affair with. Martin Smart had taken off. Bobeed took off. They just scattered. In 2016, a hammer was found in an area that had previously been a pond near there. It had dried up. And a guy was out there with a metal detector, and he came across this hammer, and it matched the description of the missing one. It had a blue handle.
As old guys are wont to do.
Right? Look at this. It matched the one Smart had said had been stolen. That same year, an article in the Sacramento Bee said Martin Smart had fled not long after the murders and gone to Reno, Nevada. From there, he sent a letter to his wife that was all about their troubled marriage, but the letter ended. I've paid the price for your love, and now that I've bought it with 4 people's lives, you tell me we are through. Great. What else do you want? That's how the letter ended. 4 people's lives. Martin's VA counselor said Martin had admitting to killing Sue and Tina, but he always maintained he had not killed the boys. The counselor further stated that he admitted he'd killed Tina because she was a witness. According to his wife, he'd long hated John, the older son. Plus, he was angry because Sue was telling Marilyn to leave him because he was abusive. And Sue had fled an abusive marriage. Sue so he was pissed off that she was dabbling in their marriage, interfering. The counselor actually reported this all to the police, but the police didn't log it or follow it up in any way. It is not in the documentation. That's a big problem that'll come up later, too.
Kinda.
Yeah. As far as the quote from the letter, it's been said that he was likely counting those 4 lives as his, Marilyn's, and Marilyn's 2 sons. Well, the people who say it wasn't him are like, no. He meant he bought it with their 4 lives, like having a miserable life or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Right. But pair that with him admitting to his VA counselor who, because, if you admit to, like, killing people, the counselor is allowed to report that, right?
Yes,
so he did, and it went nowhere. And he was interviewed later, and he was like, I don't understand how they didn't pursue that. Anyway, Bobeed and Smart had met shortly before the murders, possibly at the VA hospital where Bobeed was being treated for PTSD. It was said that he had come on to Sue a couple times, but that she'd rejected him. He told the police a bunch of lies while being questioned, such as that he'd been a Chicago cop for 19 years, he'd never been a cop, that Marilyn Smart was his niece. He hadn't met her until he met her husband. It actually turned out he had mafia ties. He was an enforcer for the Chicago Mafia before he moved.
Oh.
In fact, he was thought to be an informant for the Department of Justice. And when the Sacramento Department of Justice got involved in the murders, instead of sending homicide detectives, they sent organized crime investigators. And then...
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. The last development in this case occurred in 2018. That's the last I could find anything. Special investigator Mike Gamberg, who was brought in to investigate the case all these years later in 2013 by Sheriff Hagwood, because Sheriff Hagwood had been friends with Dana and John. They'd gone to school together. His mom had taught Tina in school as a teacher.
Okay.
So he
wanted
the entire community, because it was a small community, wanted to know who did this. I mean, they were living possibly with the murderers this whole time. They don't know. So he's brought him in, and he's just been investigating this. So he said DNA evidence had been pulled from tape. Now, all these years later, they were able to pull some DNA evidence of tape from the tape at the crime scene that it matched a living suspect. While this might have eliminated Smart and Bobita as suspects, Gamberg has stated that he thinks that there were more than the two people involved in this, that it was a much bigger thing. And he said he's coming for those that are still alive. He said, we're making progress. He has the hammer now that was found.
Right.
And he found another knife under a wood pile, like a hunting knife, and he took that in just in case it could have something to do with it. So the last I heard is these were being tested. He said it had been connected to somebody, but there have been no more arrests in this time. The Sharp children who've survived were sent to live with an aunt, but she couldn't handle their care in addition to take care of her own children, and she surrendered them to foster care. I imagine that 3 children who had been through what they'd been through,
traumatized children,
yes, were probably tricky to deal with, although I still think you have to be a shitty aunt to do that to these children who've been traumatized. I found it interesting that they were never given to their father to live with, so I don't know if that means he was abusing them, and it was documented.
Or did he just take off and nobody ever heard from him?
I don't know.
Again?
It was said that he hadn't even, when her brother was talking to the police, he said the dad hasn't seen him in over a year. He hasn't bothered contacting him or visiting him. And she hadn't even given him that new address when she moved to her telephone number because he just didn't bother with them. The Navy was what we're paying them. I've seen how that works. You can go to the military and get that money even if you can't get it from the parent. So anyway.
Like having your wages garnished.
Yeah. Some of the suggestions for why the murders occurred include the possibility of Sue having an affair with Martin Smart and Marilyn finding out and being part of the murder. Because the stories from her were so weird too. Mm-hmm. The bloody coat. Well, a coat was found with Tina. So, what, was she wearing 2 coats? So they kill her in one and leave it? Okay. And again, there was no record of it. But in this case, that doesn't eliminate anything. Someone claimed the friend Dana had stolen a bunch of LSD recently, so they thought perhaps the drug dealers had gone. But a lot of it seemed focused on Sue. Removing her pants and her underwear and gagging her that way.
Yeah.
And she was talking to the people ahead of time. Like, you don't have random drug dealers show up at your house and let them in to wait for,
why would she let a stranger in?
But it was odd that she was talking to them, and when the boys came in, that's when the confrontation occurred too. So, anyway, there was no drugs, no paraphernalia, nothing was found at that house afterwards, for the record. The boys didn't even have pot on them. So...
Which back then in California.
Right? Come on. Also, Sue had gotten into a loud fight in the front yard just shy of 2 months before the murders. From the sound of it, that boyfriend was one of the many questioned. She was actively dating during the time. There were also a lot of men who were interested in her. I don't know if she was particularly dynamic or vivacious. Single mom of 5, and she was being pursued by these men. There were men she'd rejected. They talked to everybody they could find that fit that description. She was quiet. Everybody said she was quiet. She was pleasant. She was a good neighbor. She was taking business classes to try and better herself. So they interviewed all those guys they could. As well, there's the fact that her ex was abusive. However, he didn't know where she was. Then again, last he'd had her address, she was in Quincy, 7 miles away. Would it be so far gone if she was still working there? The kids frequently went to Quincy because that was the, and we'll quote, big town nearby. Right. Who knows? But I don't think it was ever realistically considered that and then he would kill the other 2 people and kidnap his own daughter. And
that doesn't make any sense.
So basically, they just don't have any really good theories. It has repeatedly been said the investigators were either incredibly incompetent or that they were complicit in covering up the murders. Makes sense because the sheriff was friends with the person being accused. He didn't pursue it when the counselor said, hey, he admitted to me that he murdered them. I assume he killed the women, Bo killed the guys. You know, there were many items not logged as evidence. There was evidence in random boxes that Gamberg later discovered. There was an unopened envelope with the tape of the anonymous 911 call that after Tina's body was found and before it had been identified said that's Tina. It was in an unopened envelope. It had never been opened. It had never been listened to or examined.
Oh my God.
And all these people reported, I reported such and such. And it never made it into the stuff. Now, it was a small town, and it's not uncommon for small town cops who've never dealt with bigger crimes. You have this sudden massacre of 4 people, right? Like, well, a murder of 3 people and then a kidnapping. And you can bungle it, but the way they bungled it, or it was a mix of incompetence and them trying to cover it up.
I don't know. I think the counselor, I can let a lot of that.
But the counselor saying he admitted to it.
This guy said he did it.
And him going, no, I talked to him myself. And he passed a polygraph. Yeah, well, if you're psychotic, you often can pass a polygraph. So anyway, Gamberg has pulled out the recording. He's having it analyzed. And they do have tapes of the suspects they interviewed. So he was having it compared to the suspects to see if the voice might be similar. Because how did this person know it was Tina's remains? Were they part of getting rid of it? Had they been talked to about it? Were they part of it?
Were they psychic?
Right. So anyways, he's had that happen. He submitted the new hammer. He's the one who found the DNA on the surgical tape. He's doing everything he can now to try and, because he's also from the town and he also knew.
We'll have to keep an eye on this one.
Yeah, there is a site. Did I do my sources? I didn't. So Wikipedia, historicmysteries.com, people.com, for People Magazine, because they recently covered it. There is a site called Keddie28.com, and it's a guy who was very invested in the case, and so he had all this stuff, and he has photos and stuff, but it hasn't been updated since that. In fact, I think the last update I saw in there was like 2016 for the hammer that had been found, but there's a lot of interesting stuff that he had that I didn't include because he was the only one reporting it.
Keddie's still a small town?
Yeah. In fact, these cabins have now been torn down. That whole
I was going to say, you could probably call the officer and just say, I'm just curious if you had an update.
Probably. We can't stay in the murder cabin, though, because it's been torn down. So that's unfortunate. No field trip to Keddie.
I don't think we're going to be staying in the Rockefeller mansions either. So.
We could go to Rockefeller Center. We just go to New York, and then it's all Rockefeller.
That's true.
But yeah, so that's always been... This story was like the inspiration for movies like The Strangers and stuff like that. Everybody has their theories.
This one, because I don't know a lot of the crime stories like you do, because that's not my jam. But this one I do know because I did know this one because it's back when we could leave the house. Back when we could travel, Nikki and I were traveling to or from college, and she was playing a podcast, and it was a good. I can't remember who it was. I'm sure she does because she's younger and has better memory. But yeah, this is what it talked about. So when you said Keddie, it didn't strike me, but when you said Keddie Cabins, I went, oh, I know this one. I'm like, oh, I know something.
It was just so violent and so brutal. Yeah. And the fact that those boys slept through it in the other room. And that always kind of made me lean toward the Martin Smart angle anyway, because he wouldn't kill his own son.
And if he was the next door neighbor, if they saw him or heard him, it wouldn't
be unusual. Yeah. I think that it sounded kind of like they all drank together. In fact, Marilyn and Martin Smart were both in a typing class with her at her business thing. So... they knew each other in a lot of ways. And I remember, I think it might have been on BuzzFeed Unsolved. They covered it. And I could have sworn they said that the 2 men were not only seen with suits at the bar, but with sunglasses on, even though it was night. But I did not find that anywhere to substantiate it. And that's why I didn't put it in there. Because that obviously, but here's the other thing. If Justin had seen it, he would have recognized his dad. Unless he just saw 2 other people and there were in fact more than 2 in the building. We're talking a small cabin though.
That's true. Well, if he didn't see his dad, I'm reaching, in a suit often, if he had on a suit and a pair of sunglasses and he was sleepy and just kind of glanced out. Although there's so much that goes...
It's such a long time for him to have watched it, though. Like, she's talking to the men, and then the two boys come in.
Yeah.
And then Tina wanders in. And I'm like, did he really just stand there watching all that time? And then,
Or did he...
And he was watching a movie before, so maybe he paired stuff with the movie. They never said what they were watching.
Or drank part of it.
Yeah. But then who covered her with a blanket? And here's the thing,
bizarre.
if it wasn't him... Again, covering somebody with a blanket is often showing remorse.
Right.
Like, if one of the men who did it felt remorse and didn't want to leave her exposed because she was the one who'd been stripped down and she didn't have pants or underwear on, I could see them covering her up. But that would mean it's someone who knew her. I mean, that's kind of rule number one in true crime stuff. If they show that remorse, often it's somebody who knows them in real life. So, and she let them in.
Right.
She let them in at some point. They did not break in. So
that's just...
Anyway, it's another one of those unsolved crimes. Hey, actually, I went through that pretty fast because we're at about the time it normally is. So that's not too shabby.
I hear about it if we run long because I will hear from thing one. She'll listen to it on her way to work and then on her way home from work. If it runs long, she doesn't get to the end when she gets home. So when I
try and always get them down to 1 hour, 15 minutes.
So when I was talking to her Wednesday, she said, I was listening to the podcast, but I didn't quite finish it. I said, was it such and such? And she goes, no. I said, then it was such and such. And she said, no. I said, what the hell was it? And she said, it was that wacky Florida shit. Oh, yeah, that one. I said, I was just in my files today posting stuff and I said,
yeah, once I sit down and do, I sent you all my sources so you can put them up, and then I always then schedule out my photos and stuff.
Yep.
And I got 2 edited this last week because I knew I'd be working on my capstone project, so I didn't want to have to stop. For those who aren't in the know, it's big. It's basically a final of the entire business core classes that I've already taken. So 30 some odd credits worth that I'm being tested on all at once.
Nikki had a capstone project.
Okay.
In her stuff last semester, I think.
I have my last assignment will be about the only other capstone I do. So this is the yay business core. So that's exciting. All right.
Oh, you have cool stuff on your bookshelf.
I know. I have so many horror things.
Yes.
I look forward to the day when we're selling our house.
And then you have the little mini of the Christmas story lamp.
Yes, my sister got that for me. Shout out to Sierra.
It is hilarious because there's a rubber clown mask, there's a skull, there's a couple of skulls and a skeleton, and there's all this creepy shit, and then you see the little Christmas story.
Anyway, moving on from my decor. Maybe I'll post a shelfie at some point.
This is the only place I go.
I know.
I go to work and I go here. That's it.
You guys don't even understand. We talk before we start recording.
Yeah.
And then we talk in between recordings because we try and do 2 in one day so that we're not having to do it every weekend.
And then we talk all through the recording.
Right.
And then when we're done, we talk some more.
We're apparently very social animals, okay? Listen.
We have a narrow window of socializing.
Take it. And unfortunately, you were party to it.
Yep.
We're sorry. All right.
I'm not sorry.
So you're not. She's not sorry. That's right. I always try not to speak for you, and I just did. But to many people in the community, we're apparently the same person.
We are.
So
we are.
We might as well speak for each other. That's why we try so hard not to.
Thank you for listening. You can find us on Facebook, Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem.com. That is where we post our sources. We post a list of the other stuff we've talked about. So if we talked about a book, you can go there and go, what the hell was that book? It sounded so good. It will be listed there, the title and the author, and a link to the author if we know them, because we know a lot of those people.
We do.
We know a lot of writers.
You can go to our website, mysteriesmonstersmayhem.com. You can email us at mysteriesmonstersmayhem@gmail.com. We want to hear your stories. We love them.
Yes.
And we will read them online. I mean, if you send us something nasty, we might read that online too. I don't know.
Especially if you include your name.
It depends how snarky we're feeling, I guess. But anyway, send us some fun stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Send us pictures
Do you know
of your
about
pets.
curses? Does your family have a curse? We want to hear about it.
Did you have any cursed toys? Did you have grandparents who were spooky?
I don't know.
You never know.
No. But maybe you did, and you should tell us about it.
Or did something happen at your high school or in your hometown?
Oh, yeah.
We'd love to hear about it.
I know.
So,
I mean, even at my giant school, stuff happened that we knew about. So you guys have to have those stories.
yeah.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks
and
for listening.
we'll babble at you later.
Have a good week.
Bye.
Bye.